All systems go. Clear for liftoff.
What is going on, Ship It Nation YouTube station? I'm back. It feels like it's been years since I've been on here talking baseball with my good guy Matt here with the All-Star break coming to conclusion, and then I was on vacation up at the lake house enjoying the 4th of July there. So here we are, July 20th. Feels like it was just July 4th yesterday, and now July is almost over. So summer's just rolling right along here, and then it's back to the cold, shitty weather in Wisconsin. So looking forward to that there. But we got 14 games to talk about here, Matt, and we got a Wrigley win game. We got Coors Field. We got the Dodgers on the slate. We have the Red Sox, who our guy Wombat in the Discord is slobbering off of every single day, saying they're the best team in baseball because they got hot. Should be a fun one to break down. We got lots to talk about here. We got spend up pitching. We got aces across the board. Obviously, with just the All-Star weekend happening, or the All-Star week, happening, and then one weekend series, which sets up most of these teams for their aces on the mound. We got the Miz, we got Sanchez, we got Cease, DeGrom, Kirby. We're going to talk about all of it. We're going to talk pitching, and then we'll go game by game. Talk hitting, try and get out of here as quick as we can. I know you got a hard stop at 5 in about an hour here. So bring you in right away, man. Happy Monday. How was your weekend? What's going on, brother?
Yeah, weekend was good, bro. Happy to be on here with you. It feels like it's been too long since we last got on here and talked some scenes. So, man, happy to be back on here with you for sure. You said to me the last thing before we got live is the slate is a doozy, and I couldn't put any other better word next to it. I mean, it's about as doozy of a slate as you'll ever find. Great stacks, great pitching, dealer's choice tonight.
Yeah, I mean, really ownership outside of maybe one or two spots. And everyone's like, oh, it's Coors Field, it's the Nats, they're best offense in baseball statistically for over the first half. They're got to be chalk, right? But no, DraftKings actually priced them up even more than they were already priced up. Obviously, when you're producing fantasy points day in and day out, DraftKings algorithm catches that and at least prices you up. So it's not like we have a team that is just underpriced in Coors, but we do have a team that's underpriced for the game environment overall. Is kind of how the slate shakes up, right? So we got a spend down arm that everybody wants to go to in kind of that mid tier against the Pirates in Yankee Stadium in Ryan Weathers, and then you got Miz, and then the Tigers is kind of what the slate shakes up to be because of the win game there in Wrigley. There is also weather concerns in that game, but it does look like it is going to play. So that seems like full steam ahead now. Roth did update his weather forecast there, had it tagged as kind of orange-yellow. Now it's green-yellow. So guns a-blazing in that game. Everybody's going to run there for probably a good reason. It's pretty hot and humid, wind blowing out there in Wrigley, which we know what that does. And two pretty crappy pitchers, at least one crappy pitcher, in my opinion, on the mound for sure, which is hence why Tigers are going to get the ownership they're going to get. But, Matt, I'll go ahead and bring in our slate station right away here. Go ahead and add that to the stage. Swap over here. I got our pitcher rankings here up on the screen, Matt. I'm going to go ahead and sort by salary, not by rankings. We're going to go 8K and above and try to do our best to navigate this pitcher pool and kind of trim it down a little bit here. Obviously, when you got 28 teams on the docket, there's going to be tons of stacks that we don't talk about. We do talk about. You can't play everyone on slates like this unless you're playing 600 lineups, and good luck doing that. So talk to me. How are you approaching this pitching slate? Are you going to spend the 12K? Jacob Mizorowski, best K prop on the slate. Clear-cut National League Cy Young favorite right now as it comes. He has had some extended time off. So that is also something to talk about when we're talking pitching as well. The extended time off, he did skip his last start before the All-Star break, and then obviously didn't pitch in the All-Star game as well either. So he is on extended rest. Sometimes that messes with pitchers a little bit there, but 12K against the Mets lineup, who's littered with strikeouts overall. Christopher Sanchez right there. Nobody's going to play Christopher Sanchez at 11K, probably for a good reason, right? He gets the Dodgers matchup, but Christopher Sanchez is one of the best pitchers in the league, right? And you can argue he's kind of matchup proof overall. It is an expensive price point to pay in relative to the slate. So talk to me, how are you approaching the top two guys, and then really hit on the guys that are going to get kind of majority of the ownership behind Mizorowski, which is going to be Dylan Cease and Jacob deGrom at 10K and 10.5 there. And then George Kirby a little bit as well. Best pitchers ballpark out there, 9,400, pitching at home. We love to target these Seattle pitchers when they're pitching at home. Talk to me.
Yeah, so I think those are the big five right there that you mentioned. As far as Miz goes, I think he's definitely the top ceiling option on the slate, no doubt. Projects the best. If one guy is going to break the slate, you'd put your money on it that it's Miz, although there are a few guys that could do it tonight. Your point about the long time off, missing a couple starts, I think that just puts it kind of like you mentioned, like pitchers are creatures of habit. I think there's a little bit more unknown coming into this start, but I think it could work out both ways. Like, I think he could be even sharper tonight because he's had so much time off. I do think that it could work in the other side of that where maybe he's not as sharp. So it's tough to like have a hard stance on Miz here because of the price tag and how many expensive offenses there are to like tonight. That said, he's clearly the top option if you can make it work. After that, I kind of view all the guys pretty similarly. It's tough to pay 11K for Sanchez against the Dodgers. Like, man, I love the idea of being contrarian. He is good enough where he can get through and dominate any lineup, but just not using pitchers against the Dodgers, not especially spending up on pitchers against the Dodgers is pretty, safe way to play it on a slate to slate basis. I don't know if I want to differ to that here. My next favorite after Miz is Kirby. You talked about the ballpark. You get this Reds team coming from Coors, going to Seattle. Their home park is obviously very hitter friendly. Kirby, much like many of these Seattle pitchers, better at home. Elite strikeout matchup. I really like Kirby here, especially at a discount from Cease and deGrom, who I also like. Cease has been phenomenal this year. I hate that he went into the ninth inning, I think, last game with a no-hitter, threw 120-ish pitches. That was before the break, though, so did have some time off. I like Cease here, and then deGrom. Feels like his floor is probably the lowest. We know the White Sox have been great against right-handed pitching, but deGrom has also been really good at home. So I think Sanchez is the clear, odd man out of these five. I think he's going to be by far the lowest owned. And that in itself has me interested in tournaments. But just on paper, I would rank the Miz, Kirby, Cease, deGrom, Sanchez.
Yeah, no, I like kind of how you broke it down there. I am going to talk about Peyton Tolley a little bit as well at 8,700 there against the Orioles. Adley Rutschman just went on the 10-day IL, so that does help him a little bit there as well as kind of a pivot there in that 8,700 range, and in teams where you're not spending up on a Miz, I think he makes some sense. I see our guy Sean Sully in the chat saying 12K is way too much for Jacob Mizorowski. Let me ask you something real quick, Sully. How many times have you seen a 9.5K prop on Vegas books? Not very often, right? And that's basically, I mean, it's a little juice to the under, but it's pretty close to being even money, right? So, I mean, that's the argument on the slate is you can make is, okay, so if the Nats go up and put up 23 runs like they did in Sacramento over the weekend, you're probably not going to need Miz regardless of what he scores because the Nats are going to be the winners in terms of the bats. And you can make that case for a couple offenses, right, on this slate. Miz is still the cash game guy, right? The Miz, 12K, there's 28 offenses on the slate that you can get to. And there's a lot of teams that are in good spots outside of the win game and outside of the Coors Field game. The Tigers are underpriced. So that's why you can afford Miz. And that's why he's going to get ownership. He's the best pitcher in the league. His K props, his projections, everything's off the chart. You can make the argument the Mets haven't struck out a ton over the last month against right-hand pitching, but Miz, doesn't matter who. If Miz is on, it doesn't matter who he's facing. It's not about the team. It's about him, really, as the pitcher. So if you can afford Miz, he's great. I'm probably going to play this slate one of two ways. It's either you spend up for Miz and probably one of these other spend-up arms, or you just punt your pitcher off. You play like Ryan Weathers down below 8K and another cheap arm, Shane Baz or something like that, and then you just spend up for the Nats bats or the spend up offenses. So there's two clear-cut ways to play this slate. One way is not right, one way is not wrong. It could be a combination at the end of the day. Not much more for me to say with Miz. If you can afford him, he's great. I'm probably going to have in my hand builds, my two kind of main teams, I'm probably going to focus around him and just take an underweight approach on some of the more popular offenses and try and just say, okay, those offenses are all middling at their salaries. That Miz is the guy you need over those offenses. So that's kind of how you approach it. Yeah. I like Dylan Cease a ton as well. DeGrom, I think, is a really good play as well at 10K. I think you're more than happy to start with one of those if you can't afford that extra 2K to get up to Miz. I'm with you on Kirby too. Kirby, I think SP, like the salary adjusted points per dollar wise at that in this ballpark against a strikeout happy Reds team, I think he is arguably one of the best plays on the slate. And he's not going to get owned as such just because the ownership is going to spread out so much because we have so many games on the slate and we have Miz, we have Sanchez, we have Cease, DeGrom, we have all the big names on the slate. Not everybody can get played, and people also want to play the offenses, right? So more people are looking to spend down with guys like Ryan Weathers who look really good, things like that. So ownership's going to spread out. I think Kirby's a really, really good play. The only other guy I wanted to mention besides the big five up at the top is Peyton Tolle. I'm a believer in this kid. I think he's solid arm. The O's, like I talked about, I don't love picking on them a ton. It is good hitting environments in Fenway, but the Red Sox bats have been really good as of late. Shane Baz has capabilities to get hit up, especially from the left side. So you could see Tolle be pitching with the lead, which does help the case there. And at 8,700, not many people are going to get to him. So I think as a contrarian play up here in this range, I think Peyton Tolle at 8,700 makes some sense. Not much more up there, but down below 8K, I think there is a couple guys. I'm going to throw out a couple names for you, Matt, and then let you break it down. Emmett Sheehan up at the top at 7,900. On the other side of that Christopher Sanchez matchup, a lot of times we see pitchers going up against clear-cut, kind of higher caliber arms like a Sanchez, like a Mizorowski. The pitcher on the other side tends to get up for games like that, especially with the Dodgers and the Phillies in Philly here. Sheehan, you could play him, I think, at 7,900. I don't love it, but he is a pivot off of Ryan Weathers, who is going to be the chalk SP2 in the slate, 7,700. He's a good arm, gets the Pirates, who are left-handed heavy, and I think it's a really good spot for him overall. Ownership, like I said, is going to be spread out, so it's not really like he's going to be a 50, 60% on pitcher or something like that. So I think Weathers looks the best, personally, on paper, as does projections-wise. Everybody's going to see it that way. And then I think if you're punting down, you could take a shot and kind of hold your nose, plug your nose, and play guys like Andrew Alvarez on the slate at 5,700 in that other roster type construction that I say that, hey, maybe you just spend up for the Nats who are going to be lower owned because of their salaries. You pair them up with a guy like Andrew Alvarez, who I think has some talent. I know he's pitching in Coors Field. I know it's against the Rockies, but if he can navigate against really Hunter Goodman, I think that's the biggest issue there. So talk to me. Any guys down here, are you going to mess with any Jansen Junk, Andrew Alvarez, any of these cheaper guys down here in teams where you're not spending up at pitcher and you're prioritizing bats over the arms?
So, man, as I was telling you before we started, I think for me, a big issue on this slate is I just don't see any cheaper pitchers I like. That said, you definitely have to consider some of these guys just because of how this slate plays out with the expensive offenses that are in play. Now, to your earlier point about just playing Miz and figuring the rest out, I get that. I get playing that way too because it's a big enough slate where there's always going to be cheap bats in play. But as you've mentioned a couple of times, there's multiple ways to play this slate. And I think that at least taking some shots on some cheap pitchers is worth exploring. Weathers looks the best, undoubtedly. The under 8K range for sure. I like the matchup. Pittsburgh against lefties or lefties against Pittsburgh has been a thing all year. I could buy Weathers for sure here. Sheehan, I just don't like the spot against Philly. Although it's just a talent play, so I don't hate it either. Alvarez, I was looking at him. Alvarez and Kyle Leahy. And Leahy is a guy that I've wanted and picked on much of the year. But on this slate, against this Angels lineup at 6,500, I think Kyle Leahy is my favorite, like just cheap dart throw. Alvarez right there too, because Alvarez is 1,000 cheaper. So I think like you worry more about Alvarez's length if they're both pitching well, but Alvarez is even cheaper. So I think those two guys, Jansen Junk, I don't hate him either because you look at this Houston lineup, at least what they ran out yesterday, about as bad as it can get with Alvarez in there. So once you get past Altuve and Alvarez, a lot of minor leaguers in there. I don't like Junk. I don't want to play him, but 6,300 against a mostly minor lineup, I've played worse.
Yeah, no, a couple other guys I do want to throw out. Andrew Abbott, I think, is pretty interesting too. Just on the other side of that matchup, I think you could really get away with pairing up Abbott and George Kirby and just saying, hey, I'm going to play the pitchers in the best pitching environment on the slate. And hopefully they do enough and they have solid enough matchups. This Mariners team has not been the same Mariners team of last year. Obviously, on the back of Cal Raleigh last year, he's kind of not declined, but not doing the same kind of season, right? The outlier season he had last year. So it's actually a pretty solid matchup there. And I think Abbott has some talent. He's been good enough, serviceable enough at home, pitching Great American Small Park. He gets a huge park upgrade here going out to Seattle and gets a pretty strikeout happy Mariners team. I mean, Cal Raleigh, 35% Ks. Emerson, 35% Ks. Weston Wilson, 30% Ks. Robles, 26% strikeout rate against left-handed pitching. So I think he is a really interesting option as well. And then Alvarez would be my second favorite guy. Yeah. So it's the lower tier for me, really kind of summary. I know there's a bunch of guys. Weather's clear-cut SP1 below 8K. But projections, everything, everybody knows that. I think Abbott's an elite pivot right off of Ryan Weathers in teams like that. So I think those two are really good. And then my favorite guy down below is going to be Alvarez. He ranks really well in our pitcher rankings. I trust their stuff enough, especially on slates like this. I like to rely on our tools a lot more to help kind of simplify it because at the end of the day, everybody can make a case pretty much about majority of these pitchers on the slate on why to play them, right? Because majority of them outside of a few guys are going to have no ownership at all, right? So you can always make that argument. Those are kind of the three main guys I'm looking down here. I get your reasoning for Kyle Leahy. I just rather, if I'm messing with that, I'd rather go up a little bit to Abbott or just save that extra $1,000 and just buy a guy like Andrew Alvarez. But again, I'm not going to talk anyone off anyone down here when they have a reasoning for it. And I know I'd rather play the Angels personally because I've stacked against Leahy every time he's been on the slate.
I think you're right. I would rather use Abbott. I like your case for Abbott here. I like the matchup. I like the ballpark. I'm with you. I think Abbott is a better play than Leahy. I don't want to play Leahy either. I haven't played him. I've stacked against him all year, so I'm totally with you there.
Yeah, our guy Checkmate talking about Springs. I'm not a Jeffrey Springs guy personally, but he is 6K against a team who's going to get a lot of ownership on the bat side because they're cheap. So Mizorowski teams are going to probably have a lot of Tigers and a lot of D-backs. So you could make the case if you're playing a guy like Jeffrey Spring, maybe don't play Miz and go with like a Dylan Cease or a Sanchez if you want to bite that bullet or something like that and just play it a little bit differently. And then you're kind of double leveraging the field in terms of roster construction there. But personally, I didn't get to him. But again, I'm not going to talk anyone really off of anyone who's not going to get any ownership. And there's some leverage against what the field's going to do, stacking against him there. So personally, for me, I didn't get there. But I think we talked about pitching enough here, Matt. Let's go ahead and kind of give your five, right? Your drive for five here. Your five arms, right? To simplify it, I know it's very hard when there's 28 pitchers, but you had to bust it down into five guys for people out there that are making 1 to 3 teams, which majority the chat is probably making 1 to 3 teams, which is a nightmare on tonight's slate. But let's try our best. Go ahead and give your 5 main guys.
I'm going to go Kirby 1, Miz 2. Obviously, this is all price considered. We'll go Weathers 3, Abbott 4. I like that Abbott call a lot. just a lot working in his for here. Not that I'm some huge Abbott fan, but kind of fell through the cracks for me. So glad you brought him up and made the case for him. And then fifth, we'll go. Man, it's hard for me to decide between DeGrom and Cease. Give me DeGrom. I'm going to switch them in my rankings there. I just don't feel comfortable with Cease coming off that many pitches. I take guys off like near no hitters, and I don't like the matchup for Cease against Tampa. So, yeah, I mean, I'm grasping at straws, but all right, give me DeGrom as my number 5 over Cease. How about you?
Yeah, I'll go Miz number 1. I'll go Weathers number 2, Abbott 3, Alvarez 4, and then I will go George Kirby 5. It's kind of those 5. It's very hard to obviously simplify. I did some cheaper guys for people out there just because the way the slate shakes up. But yeah, that's kind of the 5 I'm looking at there. And yeah, I see it in the chat. Our guy talking right here, Mr. RK Klein here. We got a 2.0, Stone 2.0 here. And I've been working with the team behind the scenes on some different metrics that I talk about a ton on these shows. The nice part about this is it's super user-friendly here. You have a virtual hand builder over here. You can just click literally optimize lineup and it'll give you the projections driven. If you go ahead and hit this save, you can save your lineup right to here. And when you do save a bunch, you can download a CSV, copy and paste it the old-fashioned way into an Excel or your DraftKings file, and you can do it that way. So it's kind of got a little built-in kind of hand builder optimizer built into it. But the thing I love about the most here, Matt, in our new tool, and then we'll talk our old Stone when we go game by game here, is now we have K per 9 on here. We have the strikeout rate. We have the Sierra, which is one of my favorite rankings for pitcher, looking at pitcher, deep diving in there. Their home runs per 9 given up, their fly ball rate, and their ground ball rate, right? So when we're talking about ground ball hit pitchers against the Brewers or fly ball pitchers in Coors Field or Wrigley Win Game, things like that, you can come over here and real quickly sort by fly ball rate, ground ball rate. If you want to go over and talk hitter, well, hide the pitcher stats, show the hitter stats, and go click on hitters. And here thing, you got their barrel percentage against the handedness, their ground ball rate, their fly ball rate, their K percentage, their expected ISO, WOBA, everything, their at bats, what their hitter ranking is right here. And it's all super filtered. And if you want to kind of virtual hand build, all you have to do is go ahead and click this guy in here, click this guy in here. You can do whatever you want, optimize, hit the lock button. It's very, very user-friendly here. We have this for golf. We have it for all of the sports. And you can also filter by the slates here as well, FanDuel and DraftKings. So I did want to show off this brand new tool. It just debuted today. Like I said, I've been working behind the scenes with the team on adding some different stats. And if you want to add more stats in here, it is customizable and we can take it back to the team. So if you're looking for other stats, whether it's pitcher or hitter stats, that would make it easier for you guys to build teams and kind of play around with it, stuff you're looking at, that you're looking at from other sites or FanGraphs or this or that to kind of simplify your tabs down, go ahead and send me a message in the Discord and we're happy to take it back and see if we can get it added here. But I did want to showcase this off. Super, super happy about this. And like I said, the best part about it is it's filterable, sortable, everything versus the old Stone, which we're still going to showcase here just because it shows the lineups in a game-by-game format. But this, you can't click and sort. You have to download the Excel file. So shout out to the team for that. Love that piece of content. I use the Stone a ton all day, every day, looking at the different metrics there. But Matt, first game on the slate, Phillies, Dodgers, Emmett Sheehan, Christopher Sanchez. Could make a case for more on the Phillies side, but it is still the Dodgers, one of the best offenses in baseball. I just rather not pick on one of the best starting pitchers in the league on a 14-game slate. So the Dodgers, not going to be down my list, but this is the lowest you're ever going to see the Dodgers owned ever, I think. So you always have that. But talk to me, Phillies, Dodgers. This is the game I don't love for offense on either side. If I had to pick a side, it'd be more on the Phillies, and especially those lefties. I just don't know if I can get up to a guy like Kyle Schwarber and Bryce Harper at those salaries over guys like the Nats in similar price ranges.
Yeah, so you have like a similar situation with the Dodgers as you do Sanchez against them, where they're all really expensive and they're facing Sanchez, so they're not going to get love. I do think that in tournaments, both Sanchez and the Dodgers are worth considering, like in that $5, I don't even know how many people are in that tonight, right? Like the Dodgers always have upside to win a slate, no matter who they're facing, no matter who else is on the slate. They're one of the only teams you can say that about, especially with Judge not in the Yankees lineup. So I don't love the matchup. I'm not going to play the Dodgers here. I'm only playing a couple lineups, and there's too many other good spots to want to spend up for the Dodgers against Sanders. But in large field stuff, I get it. The Phillies are a little more interesting, but man, like, I can't sit here and say I'm going to allocate the funds to spend on the Philly guys with so many other good spots that also aren't going to get ownership. I respect Sheehan enough where I'm probably out on this game knowing that, like, all sides of it, really. Sheehan's talented enough. The Phillies have enough power. And I just talked about the Dodgers and Sanchez, where any side could, be a winner in tournaments, but I'm not going to play any of it.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you. It'd be the lefties. So a guy like Brandon Marsh, I think, is fairly interesting at his salary. There, 4,200. He is kind of priced up a little bit more, but Sheehan is susceptible to left-handed power. So Schwarber, Harper, Marsh are kind of the three main guys to look at there. You got a cheap second baseman in Bryson Stott, who does have some stolen base upside as well. He's hitting 6 tonight, I believe, as well. So outside of that, but yeah, I really can't argue outside of its tournaments and it's baseball at the end of the day. In the large field stuff, I think the Dodgers make a lot of sense and the Phillies make a lot of sense just because people can't get to this game, probably for a good reason. But yeah, 2 good bullpens as well. Really good bullpen, obviously, on the Dodgers side behind Sheehan. So if things go south, they can just rely on that. And I don't love picking on Christopher Sanchez. Anyways, he's just a really, really, really good pitcher overall. Next spot, another game I don't love for offense here. Not the best hitting environment either tonight in Yankee Stadium in retrospect to some of the other spots on the slate. Braxton Ashcraft, a guy I didn't talk about up in the top tier. He ranks pretty well in our pitcher rankings and is going to be unowned in that kind of 9K range. So if you want to take a shot on him, I don't think it's the worst play in the world without Judge in that Yankees lineup. I still don't love picking on the Yankees, though, on a 14-game slate. But for offense here, I don't love it. Again, same kind of case for the Dodgers, as we said again. Yankees, one of the better offenses in baseball with upside. They're going to have no ownership as well against the Pirates here. But this game, again, I don't love for offense here. Go ahead and break it down.
Yeah, another game. I thought about mentioning Ashcraft. He's like an odd man out for me. If I were playing like maybe 20 lineups, I'd get to some, but tough to prioritize him in this tag, at the tag, in this ballpark, etc. Yankees lineup is still really good even without Judge. Another game where, you see the merit of the Pirates against what could be a semi-popular Weathers, but I'm not going to plant my flag on a Pittsburgh stack tonight. And then I feel the same about the Yankees against Ashcraft. So I'm out on this game. I think, like, for tournament's sake, I like the Phillies-Dodgers game more. Just because I think those offenses right now more side when they go off. So I'm not going to play any of them, but kind of how I'm viewing it comparatively, I guess.
Yeah, I will just say, now looking at it and looking at this lineup that the Yankees threw out, I have more interest in Ashcraft than I originally did. He's probably like the 6th or 7th guy of the 5 that I named earlier, just because you look at this Yankees lineup over the last month against right-handed pitching without Judge, 27% striker rate. And you look at Ashcraft, he's going to face 7 lefties in this lineup, and he's got a 32% K rate against left-handed hitters. And the lefties already strike out, and it's not the best hitting weather, right? So I did want to mention that. From an offensive standpoint, I don't love this game. I didn't want to call it one guy, though. In teams where you're not playing Ryan Weathers, Esmeralda Valdez has been absolutely red hot. I know before the break, right, before the All-Star break, he hit like 4 home runs in 2 days against the Brewers, and every one of them, I think, was against left-handed pitching, or majority of them were. So as a pivot, maybe if you're going to like an Andrew Abbott, throwing in a Valdez in one of your outfield spots at 4K, kind of that mid-tier at no ownership, that'd be a nice little separator, I think, in tournaments. So I didn't want to call him out in particular. Outside of that, I don't love. I will say Henry Davis has a ton of power at catcher. If you wanted to maybe home run hunt against Weathers with a cheap spend down catcher, something like that. But outside of that, I'm not going crazy with this game. If I had anyone, it'd be more on the Pirate side, pitching and hitting, just with the leverage you're getting on the field overall. Next spot on the slate, Blue Jays Rays, another game I don't love from a GPP standpoint here, or from a hitting standpoint. Dylan Cease, one of the best arms and one of the best arms in baseball. Rays, been one of the best offenses in baseball. I don't know how they do it. I will say Junior Caminero continue to just mash baseballs over the fence, regardless of who he's facing. This is a spot I don't love, especially paying $6,100. I'd rather pay up for a guy like CJ Abrams or James Wood for a little bit more. But you're going to get one of the hottest hitters in baseball coming off that derby. And I think he hit, a home run his first game back or two over the weekend as well. Talk to me. Any interest from hitting in this one? This is a game I don't love either side for stacking wise.
Yeah, same. Like, I feel like there's just you don't have to play Cease. You don't have to stack against Cease either. You know what I mean? Like, it's not the type of slate where I see a stack against Cease winning it. And then Nick Martinez on the other side, guy I'd like to pick on. At least I did in the first half, probably more than I should. I ended up making the All-Star game. I think there's negative regression coming to him, but the only case I can make for the Blue Jays is that they're cheap. So using them as filler pieces in stacks with expensive pitching and expensive stacks makes sense, but I'm not going out of my way to full stack them at all. And then real quick, Valdez for Pittsburgh homered again yesterday. He is absolutely destroying left-handed pitching. I mean, small sample, but couldn't ask for a better start for him. So, yeah, I'm with you there.
Yeah, no, I do think he's a really elite tournament option on the slate. Not much more for me to say in that game outside of, Blue Jays are cheap, and you can stack against Nick Martinez, but I don't love it. Rays bullpen, pretty solid as well, so not one of the favorite spots. Rays kind of right in the middle of the road, 15th overall in terms of XFIP, so not the best game overall. Next spot on the slate, Red Sox and the Orioles. Peyton Tolley, I had some interest in him up in that kind of mid 8K, upper 8K range on this slate just because I'm a believer in him. He's looked really solid. O's lineup has a lot of strikeouts, especially in the back half there. No Adley. Adds a guy like Sam Huff in there who's a walking strikeout. So no interest for the O's here. Shane Baz, I didn't mention him, but I think he is playable down in that kind of pivot off of a Weathers range. I prefer Abbott personally myself. For $100 more, but he's another pivot with some upside there. I just don't love picking on this Red Sox team. They are pretty hot right now overall. I don't know if they lost, but they were on 13 or 14 in a row, 12 in a row, something like that. I know I've been kind of detached a little bit coming back from vacation and then the All-Star break. Really good hitting weather here though tonight in Fenway, upper 70s, low 80s. 10-mile-an-hour winds blowing out towards that monster in left field. Any Red Sox interest for you against Shane Baz and this Orioles bullpen, and any O's against Peyton Tolley?
I'm more with you on Tolley here. Like, even if I don't use him, he's not a guy I'm looking to use hitters against. And then Boston, still hasn't lost. They swept Tampa in a 4-game series coming out of the break. Hottest team in baseball by far. They're definitely in play. I mean, Baz is an arm I respect, and I like his talent, but, he's inconsistent, and that's putting it mildly. Given how hot Boston is, the hitting weather, I think they're definitely in play as a stack in tournaments. I can't sit here and say I like them more than, Washington or Detroit, like Kansas City, San Fran, teams that we'll get to, but I think that they're certainly in play and on that level, and they won't get any ownership. So if you want to plant your flag on Boston here, I couldn't fault anyone, honestly.
Yeah, Baz has just not looked the same as this year as he has last year, and it's a red hot team, so I think there's merit to it. But I mean, Wilson Contreras is right up there with Valdez and Caminero, and that is red hot. I mean, this dude's come out of the home run derby smashing bombs still. Everyone says the home run derby breaks you. It actually helped those two guys because they continued to hit home runs over the weekend. So Contreras looks really good. Yoshida, Abreu, kind of that 3-4-5, I think is really interesting mini stack there. I probably don't go to a full 5-man stack Red Sox, but they are one of the hot teams in baseball. They are pretty valuable in terms of salary relief as well in good hitting conditions. And the O's bullpen is not as good as it was at the start of the year either. So I do think the Red Sox in large field stuff or even 20 max stuff, I will definitely have some just riding the hot hand. I love hot streaks in baseball, and it allows me to play Mizorowski and some of those spend up pitching arms there. Even guys in the back half. I mean, you got Jarren Duran back in this lineup at $3,700, right? So you got cheap lefties in the back half. You got a cheap Siegler up at second base, which is a weak position, rounded into the better guys, that 3-4-5 stack that I talked about. So I like potentially a little wraparound here for the Red Sox against Shane Baz. Next spot on the slate, Braves. Go ahead.
No, you go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, no. I'm assuming you were just going to say, you agree there just because their salary relief, which does fit the slate overall, the slate context. Next game, though, Braves, Padres, JP Sears, fly ball lefty, going into Truist Park here to face the Braves. Austin Riley hitting fourth. The corpse of Austin Riley is hitting in the heart. You got to always have interest in some Ozzie Albies anytime he's facing a lefty. Drake Baldwin's been pretty solid. The Braves, I have some interest in the Braves. Number one, I hate this lineup. Number two, I hate picking on the Padres bullpen. I do like targeting JP Sears, though. So this is a hard spot for me to kind of get right. I'd rather probably just maybe power hunt in this game with some Braves bats here. Albies is by far and away my favorite bat on that side. You got a cheap catcher in Joey Bart with some power, especially against lefties. Dubon's been good all year against lefties. He's 3,300. So you do have some salary saving Braves. And with the injuries they do have, I don't know how much pinch hit risk they have. Guys like Eli White are probably the biggest pinch hit risk, but him hitting ninth, I don't really expect them to pinch hit too much. Maybe they will. Usually when he's facing a lefty, he bats up in the top half of the lineup. But talk to me, any Braves Padres interest for you here?
So I feel like on a lot of slates, this is a game that would get a ton of attention, but just not on this one because of the better spots we have. I view both these teams on the same tier as the Red Sox. I really like the matchup for Atlanta, but it's always hard to plant your flag on a team going against this Padres bullpen because you need to get to the starter early. That said, I do view like the Padres bullpen as more of like it lowers their floor, but it doesn't necessarily like cap their ceiling because if they go off on Sears, you're not going to see the good arms out of their pen. But kind of like yesterday, we saw the Royals get to Marquez a little bit, but the Padres offense scored some runs, and then as soon as they brought in their bullpen, it was lights out for KC. So, man, Atlanta's intriguing, but ultimately on this slate, that's what probably keeps me off them is a full stack. And then San Diego, I think, is in play. You know, you take them out of San Diego, and they're priced like they're still in Petco. I mean, you got really cheap tags. They're coming off, obviously, their best game of the season. Elder has been pretty atrocious since a good start to the season. I think the Padres, I'm not going to say they're my favorite stack on the board, but at pretty low ownership, at good price tags, I think they're right on the same level as the Braves and the Red Sox and teams like the Giants and Royals we'll get to.
Yeah, no, I like that. I don't love it really on either side, so probably best just to kind of stay away. I did prefer the Braves a little bit more just because I haven't really played the Padres all year, but you got a cheap Gavin Sheets, a lefty against Bryce Elder, which I like lefties. Jackson Merrill's reasonably priced. Fernando Tatis finally figured out how to hit the ball off the ground, so that helps a little bit. You got a cheap Jake Cronenworth lefty. So the cheap lefties, I think like a Gavin Sheets, Jake Cronenworth, little mini stack there. Play second base and outfield, 2,900, 3,400 against a susceptible pitcher to lefties. I think that's pretty interesting there. But two solid bullpens and two susceptible arms that I think both teams are more than happy just to turn it over to the bullpens if things go south. So on a 14-game slate, that's enough to kind of take me under on full stacks. But I do get your reasoning overall for both sides there. Takes us into Freddie's return back to Miller Park, facing off against the guy who's taken his spot as the face of the franchise, at least in this season, in Jacob Mizorowski. Brewers, anytime they're facing a righty, you can always talk about them, especially a fly ball righty at that, and Freddie Peralta, who just hasn't looked good this year. Maybe Freddie goes out and just serves these guys some cupcakes and says, hey, let me return back to Milwaukee's pitching arsenal and get me back right because I went to New York and got broke just like a lot of people do. But Brewers are hard at these salaries in retrospect to some of the other teams on the slate. I'm not going to come on here and slobber on the Brewers my first day back after being gone for 2 weeks. I'll say the same thing I do every single time they're on the slate against a right-handed pitcher, especially a fly ball guy in that. I will be overweight on the Brewers in my MME stuff just because they have upside as an offense in DFS with stolen bases. And maybe they want to get to Freddie a little bit more for kind of leaving the ship after the offseason. Garrett Mitchell's been really good. Jake Bauers, Turang, and then Luis Lara, super cheap lefty switch hitter there with some speed. I think he's interesting as well. And then Cooper Pratt's been also really solid too. So I like the cheaper guys at the back half. And then probably only one of the expensive guys. If I had to pick between Yelich, Churio, Turang, it'd definitely be Turang for me. But yeah, I think the Brewers have some interest on the slate, but another game I don't love in retrospect to some of the other chalkier spots that we're going to talk about, like the Royals, the Giants, the next game. I like some Rangers and then Coors Field as well, and Wrigley. So how do you see this one?
Peralta's been bad enough where I think you could stack against him. It's just hard on this slate to, like, even though he hasn't been good, there are clearly pitchers who are worse than him on this slate. Offense is in better spots. Milwaukee's uber expensive. For me, the big problem is they just don't hit enough home runs. So I'm just not sure this is the slate to stack them at expensive tag. But I like to call them like the cheaper guys, and they are going to run. So mini stacks work. I get it for sure. You're probably higher on them than I am, but I totally get it. And then I'm not interested in the Mets at all.
Yeah, Juan Soto, Lindor, two lefties against Miz. Maybe, I mean, he has shown a little bit of susceptibility lately to the long ball. Just when you throw 105, all they have to do is really put the sweet spot on it, and it kind of do its job for you, especially with a guy like Juan Soto. So, but yeah, it's very hard to pay those price tags against the best starting pitcher in the league. So probably the best to just kind of stay away from this game on both sides. Mets do have a really good bullpen as well behind Freddie. So yeah, don't love the Brewers as much as I will probably in some other spots in this series. But I think you could play them. They rank pretty solid in our stack rankings, at least today. Right now, they're top 8 overall on our stack rankings. So I tend to agree with that, and I'll probably have them right around that in my MME set. Next spot on the slate, Royals and the Giants. This is one of the better game environments on the slate. Definitely have interest in both sides of this game. Overall, really, really good hitting environment here, especially with the new dimensions in this park. 100 degrees in Kansas City, 106 at the start with right around 10-mile-an-hour winds blowing out. The winds are going to die down kind of towards the end of the game, but you still got 5 to 8-mile-an-hour winds I'm seeing with 100 degrees here against the Giants and the Royals. I like both sides here. Ownership's going to be held in check for both teams. These are my favorite pivots off of teams like the Tigers, who are going to be mega chalk on the slate at salaries. I'll let you break it down first. Though, talk to me Royals and Giants, one of the best games, in my opinion, on the slate.
Yeah, both teams right at the top of the list for me, too. I like this game quite a bit. You know, you get a San Francisco lineup coming out of San Francisco. They just had their first series after the break in Seattle, now into Kansas City. Obviously, they lowered the fences, or shortened the fences, I should say, brought them in. And this ballpark plays pretty weather dependent. So really big home run boost tonight. I like both sides quite a bit. Waka is a fine starting pitcher. He's not a guy I'm like actively looking to pick on, but the Giants cheap, huge ballpark upgrade. I don't think they get much ownership at all. The Royals bullpen is not good. They got burnt out like the entire series against San Diego for the most part. Yeah, I could definitely buy the Giants here. And then the Royals on the other side facing McDonald. Witt back in there tonight after he missed yesterday. I like both sides of this game quite a bit. I liked the Red Sox, Padres, and Braves, and I put those teams on the level of the Royals and Giants, but I think the Royals and Giants are atop that tier. So, yeah, I like this game quite a bit.
Yeah, I like both sides. Walk is actually more reverse splitsy to power. So guys like Heliot Ramos, Adames, Casey Schmidt, I think are really interesting to add into the Bryce Eldridge, Devers of the world. I wish DraftKings would figure it out and figure out how to move one of these guys to a different position. Give one of them outfield eligibility. I know neither of them do that, but I mean, shit, you got guys who just don't play outfield ever that have the outfield tag and vice versa. Be really nice to play Giant stacks, being able to have both of the Devers and Eldridge in there. Does suck. You have to pick one of them. I lean Eldridge just because he's hit second and he's cheaper on a slate where salary is going to be constrained with the starting pitching. But yeah, I love both sides here. You got the second and the fifth worst bullpens in the league in 100-degree weather. And Kansas City had two guys probably three guys that are going to be unavailable. Lynch might be available, but there are other two guys that got burnt out. So yeah, I love both sides of this game. Caglianone at 4,300 hitting third against Trevor McDonald, I think is a really, really good play as well. But yeah, probably my favorite game environments that is kind of lower owned compared to the Coors Field and the definitely the Wrigley game. So this is my first stop after the Nats, personally, myself, looking at it. Next spot here, Eric Fetty back in our lives, White Sox, Rangers. The park is not very good here, but I do think the Rangers have a spot on the slate just at their salaries. Ownership's going to be unowned, and I like targeting Eric Fetty. I just don't think he's good. White Sox bullpen's nothing crazy behind him. It does suck because you're going up against 100-degree in the last game. You're going up against the wind blowing out in Wrigley. You're going against really good hitting weather in Philly, Coors Field. There's definitely really good spots across the slate that I don't love playing teams in Globe Life here. But Fetty is just bad enough for me to not really care. Jock Jams, Langford, Carter, Duran, Nimmo, Josh Young, all of these guys I think are pretty interesting overall. Talk to me in this one. How do you see it?
Yeah, I'm probably out on the Rangers here. Like, I get it because Fetty stinks, but man, I just at home in this park, this offense. If I were playing, like, if I'm multi-entering, I wouldn't take them out of my pool. But it's hard for me to want to plant my flag on them here. Like, you are solely just picking on Fetty, which, to your point, he probably is bad enough to just say, whatever, screw all the other spots. I'm just going to stack the Rangers here. I feel like you can make that case about like 10 different teams tonight. So it's really tough to decipher between them all. You know what I mean?
Yeah, at ownership, I much prefer the other spots at similar price points even as well, right? The Giants and the Royals, both sides of that. Obviously, outside of Bobby Witt, everyone on the Royals is pretty much free. Bobby Witt and Jensen are really the only two expensive guys. And then the Giants have no expensive guys and full 90 at-bats against a terrible bullpen and really good hitting environment. So definitely have the Giants much higher up the list. But I do think the Rangers are still pretty interesting. White Sox, 11th worst bullpen. Eric Fetty, one of the worst arms on the slate going. There's merit to the Rangers and their salaries aren't expensive. So on teams where I'm playing Miz, I'm definitely going to have some Ranger stacks mixed in with some of the Royals and the Giants teams, things like that, to get a little bit different than the Tigers value chalk, which takes us right into that spot here. Tigers, Cubs, temperatures right around 80 degrees, double-digit wind, 10-plus mile-an-hour wind blowing out in Wrigley Field, which obviously we know what that does for the game environment. Massive home run boost here against two pitchers who, well, one in for sure, in Tyon, who gives up a shit ton of lefty power. Riley Green, Colt Keith, McKinstry, McGonigal, Kerry Carpenter, James Outman, even if he's in there. I mean, you have some pinch hit risk, but Tyon's been miserable against lefties, hence the ownership going there, and salaries are not adjusted because salaries come out before the weather forecast. And I mean, this is clear-cut chalkiest spot in the slate for good reason. It's hard to argue against it, but there is still other teams in really good spots on the slate that if G. Risen was on the slate, everyone's just blindly goes and sees wind blowing out at Wrigley, goes in and clicks him. It's a little bit harder for me to kind of ignore on this slate just because it's Tyon against lefties and the Tigers' best hitters do hit from the left side outside of Spencer Torkelson and Dingler. How do you see this one, though? Break it down, both sides, Tigers and the Cubs. I definitely lean more on the Tiger side for sure if picking one of them, but the Cubs are going to be a fraction of the ownership in the exact same hitting environments against Jack Flaherty. So,
yeah, exactly. You kind of took the words out of my mouth. I mean, Flaherty is in really good form right now, so he's not a guy I really want to pick on, but at the ownership discount, they're going to get off the Tigers. The Cubs have also been good, coming off a really good series out of the break. They look good here. They're more of like a tournament low owned stack. The Tigers are the chalky, probably, as you've mentioned, highest owned stack on the board because of their price tags. And it is tough to get away from them because the spot they're in, obviously the wind blowing out against Tyon, but Tyon himself, like there are other pitchers on this slate I'd rather pick on. Certainly, I think on paper, the Tigers look really, really good, but I do think that their ownership is going to be higher than even projected because of the price tags and expensive pitching people like. And in smaller field stuff, think I'm more inclined to get away from them just because there are plenty of other good spots I like. That said, won't be surprised at all if you see the Tigers, hit 4 or 5 home runs tonight because, as you've mentioned, lineup up really for the spot. So definitely like a fade at your own risk type of spot for me. I'm not exactly sure how I'm going to play it yet. How about you?
Yeah, this is one of the spots like right. I always talk about Coors Field, the road team in Coors always being mega chalk, but that's not going to be the case here tonight. This is kind of the same kind of spot, right? Tigers are right around 120% combined ownership of a 5-man stack, which puts it at what, like 25%, 20 to 25% for each of the guys in there. Plus added in the pinch hit risk for guys like McKinstry, Colt Keith, some of the lefties, Carpenter, James Outman, right? So probably 2 of those guys probably get pinch hit for, which does diminish the stack as well. I will say, though, Riley Green, probably one of the best plays on the slate. He's going to get owned as such. Same thing with Kevin McGonigal. McGonigal is going to be probably at the end of I'd be shocked if between him or Riley Green aren't the highest owned players on the slate. I'd probably say McGonigal just because he's got third base and shortstop eligibility. But really, those 2 guys are by far and away my 2 favorites. Hard to really get away, though, from the Tigers overall. Main team stuff, single entry, small field stuff, I'm probably more inclined to get away from them. And then a large field stuff, probably more inclined to kind of get overweight and just let kind of my player pool in that I put into Saber kind of dictate it that way to get me different enough. That is kind of how I'd approach it. And then on the Cubs side of it, Flaherty's been really good, but he is still susceptible to some power, especially he gives up more power to the right side where obviously his strikeouts are more, but he really gives up fly balls, right? So you're looking at the fly ball guys here for the Cubs with the win. PCA, Conforto, Suzuki, Swanson, Happ, all those guys hit the ball in the air. So those kind of guys would be the guys I'd look at, but I much prefer the Tiger side overall on this slate. Next spot here, Marlins, Astros, Blanco on the hill here for the Astros. I think the Marlins have a spot on the slate just because the Astros bullpen's bad. Blanco's not good. Marlins are fairly reasonably priced, but really Griffin Conine, I think, is a really interesting lefty play on the slate at 3,100 is value. Not a spot I love overall from offense, but I do think the Marlins, if I had to pick a side here, make some sense. Jansen Junk, you can always stack against him, but I don't want to sign up to play the Astros on a 14-game slate. Talk to me here. How do you see this one?
I like Jordan a lot as a one-off. That's about it from the Houston side. And then Miami, you could stack them because I don't trust any Astros pitcher right now. But in this ballpark, if I'm playing one lineup, there's no way I'm stacking the Marlins. So that's kind of how I'm trying to break it down. If you're playing multi-entry stuff, have them in your pool. They've shown they have enough upside. They run. On this slate with how many good offenses there are that are going to be low owned, hard for me to want to plant my flag there.
Yeah, I will say the lefties are probably pretty safe in this game if they get to Blanco fairly early. The Astros lefties are more back end guys, so probably don't see them if this game's kind of out of hand, being the first game of the series. So Stowers, Conine, like I said, Joe Mack even, all have a ton of power against righties. They're going to be unowned and they're fairly cheap. I think that Conine, Joe Mack, a little mini stack, 6 and 8, somewhere in that 6, 7, 7, 8, somewhere in the lineup at the back half there. I think those guys make some sense at 3,100 to 2,700 is probably seeing 9 innings of pretty bad right-handed pitching on the slate. And we've seen the Astros give up a ton of GPP winning stacks on the year already, just because of how decimated their pitching staff is overall, even in that ballpark. So a little bit more interest, but I much prefer teams like the Giants, the Royals, probably even the Red Sox that we talked about already. So not a ton of interest there. Next spot here on the slate is Coors Field, Nationals and the Rockies. The only argument against the Nationals really is their salaries. Ownership's going to be kind of probably half, probably 50% of what the Tigers are going to be because of that salaries. James Wood at 6,900. Insane to think here, but CJ Abrams 6,400. Those guys hit lefties really good as well. If you're not playing Miz, I think it's a really good thing to go in and overspend for some of the, not even overspend. This offense been worth the price tags. And now they're in Coors Field, which helps them overall. Hot and humid in Coors. Are you going to prioritize Miz or are you going to prioritize Nationals is really the decision point you have to make. But it's not going to be like the Nationals are the highest owned stack on the slate because of these salaries. So you do have to make a decision point. Personally, I love the Nats here in tournaments, especially large field stuff. I'd rather spend up on some of these Nats guys personally. But how do you see this one?
It's tough, man, because to your point, really expensive pitching we like, and then the guys you want to play on the Nats are uber pricey. That said, there are some cheap guys to go to. Like Andre Chaparro is still only 3,300. Ford, presuming he's in the lineup, 3,500. Dylan Cruz, 4,500. So like outside of Abrams, Wood, Garcia, like Mead, and that's four. Like, I mean, there are ways to stack Washington without like allocating all your salary, but it's tough. And then the guys you want are super pricey. Yeah, they're the top ceiling stack on the board here in Coors against Freeland. I do think there are enough good offenses that aren't as expensive to merit not playing Washington. And I feel the same about Colorado because they're also in a good spot. They're also really expensive. I don't love them against lefties. I won't be surprised if this game is like 10-9, but I also won't be surprised if it's 5-4. And I do think that the Nationals get enough love where, you know, there are other good offenses to look at. So I haven't built my lineups yet. I think you can, it's definitely the type of spot where you can make really, really good lineups with Washington and then really good lineups without them. The question is finding that balance. Like, can you get the pitching you want with Washington, vice versa? So not exactly sure how I'm going to play it yet, but I think they're the top ceiling stack on the board.
Yeah, I love the Nats in a build where I go like a Kirby and an Abbott, or I pair up Alvarez with a 5-man Nats stack. To Sully's point here, playing the Nats differently is going to be without Woods and Abrams. That's how everyone's going to play them because they're going to prioritize pitching and they're going to see lefty at 6,900 and 6,400 and not play either of those two hitters, which both of those guys mash left-handed pitching. And then obviously we know what they do against righties. I mean, CJ Abrams over the last month against lefties, 214 ISO, James Wood, 289 ISO, which is the best on the team. Yeah, they have strikeouts to come with it. But I actually think the way to play the Nats is to play those guys in your stack. And yeah, you have to sacrifice some pitching. But if Miz goes out there and puts out 30 and the Nats go out there and put up 15 runs with 4 or 5 home runs and some stolen bases and all the additional points, well, the Nats side is going to win that overall argument there. So that's kind of how I prefer to play the Nats. And I'm definitely going to have a lot of Nats overall on the slate just because I think the salaries are enough to keep enough people off of them. When you got the Wrigley win game as, okay, everyone's like, oh, well, the Nats are priced up. Let me just go play these underpriced guys for the environment in Chicago. And I'll take the best offense in baseball right now against a terrible bullpen and a terrible guy in Kyle Freeland in Coors Field. So that's kind of how I see it. The only guy on the Rocky side I really have interest in is Hunter Goodman coming off, 3 home run game on Saturday or Sunday, whatever it was. That dude just murders, especially left-handed pitching. But outside of that, I don't love it. I mean, Alvarez has a 29% strikeout rate against, or 28% strikeout rate against right-handed hitters. He's going to see 6 righties, and he keeps the ball on the ground. So that's kind of the reason why I had some interest in him overall. And I just don't love the Rockies much outside of Hunter Goodman. So I'll play the Nats or nothing really in that game and Goodman. Takes us to the late window, 3 games left. We got to buzz through these here, Matt, to get you out of here. I know you got a hard stop. Mitch Bratt, Jeffrey Springs, D-backs look pretty good against a fly ball guy at home here. Talk to me. How do you see this one?
I think this is kind of like the Braves Padres game where a lot of slates, this game would be highly targeted from both sides. On this one, it really won't be. Arizona will be because of their price tags, but I don't believe that is full stacks. People aren't going to full stack Arizona here. They'll use them as pieces within other stacks. So you know how I feel about Arizona. I always like them more than the field. I especially like them against lefties. Springs is certainly not a guy I'm afraid to pick on. You got Arenado really cheap, who's hot right now. Yeah, I can't sit here and say I love play. And I feel kind of similarly about the Athletics, even though, man, they're a tough click with how their lineup is shaking out right now.
Yeah, I don't love the A's side. I do prefer the D-back side. They're definitely up there on my list. I'm a little bit worried, but I think they're more going to be owned as kind of mini stacks. So I think if you're playing them, I think going in with a 5-man stack, Marte, Vargas, Barossa, who's cheap, Arenado, like you said, who's cheap, Moreno as a reasonably priced catcher, Waldschmidt hasn't really shown it yet at this level, but he's got some pedigree and he's reasonably priced. So yeah, I do prefer the Arizona side, and then you got a bad bullpen behind a bad starter in Jeffrey Spring. So it's D-backs or pass for me in that one. Reds, Mariners game, I think we can both say to cross off here. We had interest in both pitchers, worst parking in Slate. So we can just go ahead and skip that one and take us to the last game, Angels and the Cardinals. This is a spot I like for offense to round us out here. I like both sides. I definitely prefer the Angels side against your boy, Kyle Leahy. But talk to me here, Angels and Cardinals to round us out.
Don't do that to me. I know I should have never shouted him out because it was only a price play thing. He stinks. I'll never use him. It's certainly not tonight. So yeah, my bad on even calling him out. I'm with you. This is just like the Arizona game and the Padres game. We're like, man, on a lot of slates, I'd really like both these teams. Soriano, I feel like he's not bad. He's just not nearly as good as he was at the beginning of the season. So I'm no longer looking to play him in DFS, but not really wanting to pick on him on a full slate. Kyle Leahy, though, if there was ever a righty to use the Angels against on a big slate, he's it. Angels, I feel like they're like the type of team like every, 10 games. For 9 games, they absolutely stink. And then the 10th game, they go nuts. So, like, could this be that 10th game? I could dig it. Like, it's tough to full stack them on this big of a slate, but you're going to get no ownership, and I think their upside is real. So I dig it.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely gross, right? You take a look at the last month, this team against right-hand pitching, 26% K rate, team ISO 128, and that's with a guy like Josh Lau hitting for 256. So it's pretty gross, but I'm kind of a gluten for punishment here, and it's just a bet against Leahy. So that's kind of how I see it. Leahy is actually juiced to see over a 4.5 Ks for your point earlier. And yeah, I think if you wanted to stomach it, I just prefer dropping down more that when we talk pitching. But yeah, Mike Trout, Neto, Soler, Grissom, Josh Lowe, or Lau, however you pronounce it. I think those kind of main guys are interesting. And then on the Cardinal side, Burleson, Weatherholt, Nootbaar, Walker. The issue for me is Soriano's a mega ground ball guy. He's not what he was at the start of the year. He's not how he was the couple starts after that where he got absolutely shellacked. He's kind of somewhere in the middle. And the price points on the Cardinals are fairly expensive. So much prefer overall the Angels side of that game, but I think the Cardinals are pretty interesting as kind of a sneakier overall team that has a pretty solid offense, which kind of took me by surprise this season. And it is still the Angels bullpen behind Soriano there. So yeah, decent game to round us out. Matt, I know you got to bounce. Do you got time to kind of give your summary before I give mine, and then I'll finish up the show?
Yeah, I got it. I appreciate you, man. So I think for my favorite pitchers, I'll give top 3. It's going to be Kirby, Miz, and Weathers. And I like your Abbott call a lot, so we'll go 4 there. Top stacks, we'll go both sides of the Giants-Royals game. And then we will go with, man, there's so many to choose from. We'll go with the Nats just because I'm with you on the ownership there. So we'll go Giants, Royals, Nats, as we've talked about a bunch of other really good stacks to like. And then home run tonight, we are going to go with, let's go with, I called him out last game or last time I was on the show. He didn't homer, but he homered yesterday. And you called him out earlier. Give me Cags, Jack Caglione. I think he goes yard again today.
I like that. I'm going to go Miz, Abbott, and I will go Kirby as well as the 3. My favorite stacks, I'll go the Giants. I will go the Nats, and I will say the Royals as well, but I think another sneaky one is the Marlins as well.
Yeah.
On this. I think the Marlins are pretty interesting. And then my home run call, I'm going to the Giants. I'm going to Casey Schmidt gets back in the home run column here. Hitting third, I think Casey Schmidt takes Michael Waka Flocka flame deep in Kauffman Stadium. Appreciate everyone tuning in. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. For members, check out the Stone 2.0, absolutely elite tool with fully sortable, customizable to how you like. You can build lineups, save them, and upload them to DraftKings right from it. For Matt, I'm Nades. Good luck tonight in those contests. Hope to see those Ship Nation logos at the top. We're out of here. Peace.